This August will mark the 70th anniversary of the Allied Airmen arriving here at Buchenwald. And there are only a few left. Their leader, Phil Lamison, and my grandfather, Easy Freeman, who were both prisoners here, both passed away just a couple of years ago. If Phil Lamison was here, he would probably just wonder what all the fuss was about. He was just doing his job in his eyes. And if my grandfather were here, he would be very happy and surprised that we pulled this off and that all of you are here. And he would also want to know if there was a place in Weimar where he could watch an American baseball game on television. I love that this stone plaque honoring what was called the KLB Club has been placed in this location. They were at the little camp, but this has also significance, I think, to their story. Just right over here, many of the Germans in the audience will know this, but to those who don't know, one of the very symbolic moment happened in the progress of the war just a few feet from here. I will try not to get your history wrong, but just over here was a tree that was called Goethe's tree, or Goethe's oak. And this is the tree that was associated with the author Goethe, who wrote Faust. Throughout German history, it kind of became known that as long as Goethe's tree stood, so too would Germany. To the guards, the tree had one meaning, and to the prisoners, it had another. For the guards, it stood for Germany's greatness, and for the prisoners, it stood for how great Germany had once been. You'll notice that the tree I've been pointing at over here is no longer standing. 4 days after arriving here at Buchenwald, the Allied airmen heard what for them was the sweet, sweet sound of a B-17 bombers approaching from that direction over there. Because they were airmen, they were the first to recognize that these bombers were targeting this place. They saw the flares come out and they realized the bombs were on the way, and they started to take cover. At this stage, they were still living outside. They had not been given a barracks yet, so they were living out in the cold, and they had no place to hide. And what many of them called the most accurate bombing they ever witnessed, those bombs flew harmlessly over most of the camp and then absolutely devastated the factories over there. However, a few stray bombs landed inside the camp, and one of them struck Goethe's tree. They say that tree burned all night. So Goethe's tree did not survive, but here we have 4 airmen who did survive. And today we are here to honor the 2 that did not survive, Levitt Beck and Philip Himmons. We are honored to have Chat and Don and Ed and Dick here with us today, and their families. And we have invited each of them to say a few words if they would like. The first one to come up will be Mr. Bedford.
I can't believe it. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the foundation for enabling us to come back to this celebration. This is the 69th reunion. I want to thank Mike Dorsey for telling our story, and it's just, I just can't believe it. The start of my trip here was between June 6th and June 12th. That was the time of the invasion in France. My career as a pilot ended on June 12th when I was shot down after a mission into France. I evaded capture for many, many weeks. I found French people who would hide me. They fed me. They tried to protect me while I was in France. But I was moved into Paris to eventually get into Spain or Portugal, but I was turned in by a French collaborator who turned me over to the Germans, and I ended up in Friends prison. First time I was ever in prison. I was never arrested as a youngster, but I was arrested in France. It was 70 years ago that 168 Allied airmen arrived here at Buchenwald. No striped uniforms, no starving people. I see no mud, no dirty latrines, no mean capos, no snarling dogs, and most of all, no fleas or lice in our room. I see grass, some wild flowers, well-dressed people, people with shoes on, they're well fed, and one thing stays the same. I still have my Buchenwald haircut because my head was shaved as soon as I got here. And in conclusion, I never thought I'd be here again. And here I am, healthy, no grudges, upright, and above ground. And I hope no future generations will never have to experience what we did.
I guess all of our stories are very similar, being shot down and captured by the Gestapo. Finally ended up here at the Friends Prison in Buchenwald. And I just pray and hope that this whole exhibition, whatever it is, will teach people that to have more respect for other human beings. That period of time showed a lot of hate of other people, and I just pray that hate is a word that people never use about other people, human beings. Show more respect and have compassion for other human beings and treat them as they would like to be treated. And I hold no grudges. People ask me if I hate. I can't hate. My life won't allow me to hate. And I think that's a word that we should never use. And anyway, I don't have much more to say except I'm just thankful to be here and thankful to have survived. A lot of people I know didn't, and just pray for them. Thank you very much.
Now we'll hear from Ed Carter Edwards.
Today, April 13th of the year 2014, lucky number 13, we are witnessing the second miracle that the Allied airmen who were incarcerated in Buchenwald have experienced. First miracle was our timely removal from Buchenwald by the German Air Force. 168 of us had been shot down over France and betrayed to the Gestapo by a Belgian collaborator who had infiltrated the French resistance. Stripped of our dog tags and labeled as spies and saboteurs, we were first sent to Friend Prison and eventually Buchenwald concentration camp. As horrific an experience as this was, we knew we were the lucky ones. Many of our friends spent many years in this awful camp. Everyone who endured and survived Buchenwald carries deep scars from the experience. Lost airmen of Buchenwald were forced to endure a second wave of torture. For 70 long years, we tried to tell our stories and share our experiences with our militaries and government, but no one would listen. Friends, strangers alike, doubted our experiences. Our politicians weren't interested, and historians felt they already knew the whole story of Buchenwald, and we weren't in it. Fortunately, we airmen have friends who know the story of the lost airmen of Buchenwald as non-Europeans who faced the same horrors as they did. This brings us to our second miracle. After 70 years fighting for recognition, we finally have found our chapter of the Buchenwald story recorded officially with this commemorative plaque. The Buchenwald song says, "How can I forget you when you shall be my fate?" This plaque now permanently etches our story into the history of this place, tying our fates together. This plaque would not have been possible without the commitment, passion, and compassion of our friend and documentary filmmaker, Mike Dorsey. Met Mike at the Elephant Hotel in 2010. He was making a film about us called The Lost Airmen of Buchenwald. He and I got to talking. When Mike heard about the personal devastation we felt from being told to repress our experiences by our own government, he said, that's not right. He felt, as we do, that our experience matters, that they hold lessons for future generations. Mike Dorsey, he spearheaded a campaign to raise funds and support for this plaque and worked closely with the memorial to make today's unveiling happen. While this plaque is a realization of our second miracle, there's still work to be done. We have made our government hear our story. We have partnered with friends with the memorial and the IKBD to preserve that story. But there is a third miracle still to be achieved. As survivors, telling and sharing our stories at these commemorations, at school visits, and with plaques and interviews, we are ensuring the horrors and lessons of Buchenwald are passed on to the next generation. Today's youth will take these lessons to heart so that our past doesn't become their future. And that would be our third miracle, a future where there are no concentration camps, no genocide, and no war except in stories like ours. Looking at the world today, it's clear we have a long way to go. We should not and cannot lose hope. If today teaches anything, let it be that miracles are possible. I thank you.
And then, last but not least, we will hear from Don Shearer.
I think that I can tell you that I was shot down on a 46 bombing mission. My pilot was killed when he tried to go out the roof and he hit the tail. The two tail gunners and the engineer in the back with me didn't get out. When I gave a talk at home to the students and things about what the flag means, I tell them that I was arrested and put in a jail in Paris in solitary confinement. But I didn't tell the truth, because when I woke up from that bed of straw, I had lots of fleas. I turned my pants out to the seams and did my fashion my fingernails, and you'd think I had fingernail polish on. Now, I owe Buchenwald this tribute. What I learned here about life changed my life. I know what it was to be hungry. I know what it was to be nearly scared to death. And I'm a little chilly and a little shaky. But when I got in here, and the first morning I had coffee made out of acorns. I had a piece of bread that had sawdust in it. And I had margarine to put on it that was made out of coal. That was what we had. And then we existed on a third of a liter of soup a day, plus a slice of bread. And the soup could be barley cooked like oats with the worms still in it. We ate the worms. It was, we had what we call clear death soup. It was clear, just clear, and it had fat floating around on it, and grass in the bottom. So we call that yeah. That was what was good. But a third of a liter. Now think of this: you get a half a liter of Coke bottle, and you think you got something. But if you get a third of a liter of soup, that don't take you very far. That was part of what I had to worry about. But the thing that got me, I guess, more than anything else, was the fact of the fear that I had. I hadn't experienced fear like I had there. I heard about the big man that was there that stomped the fella to death. I was scared because if they told me something in German and I didn't understand, I worried about getting kicked or hit with the rifle butt or something. I remember one of the men was standing at attention, an English officer, and a German fellow walked up, took out his pistol, and hit him in the face and bloodied his face. And it turned out that the way he was, had his fist down like this, and the Germans put their hands down to show that there's no weapons or things in their hand. And he had his face bloodied because that was, he kept telling him he'd go back to the same position. I guess maybe I've said it already, but I want to say it again if I didn't. In Buchenwald, I suffered. In Buchenwald, I was scared to death. In Buchenwald, I didn't know whether I was going to survive or not, so my attitude toward life changed a good bit. And I left here. While I was here, I told myself that if I'm never cold, if I'm never hungry, if I'm never scarred to death, I wouldn't complain, and I don't. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad I saw a smile or two.
Before we unveil the plaque, we would like to, Ed Carter Edwards' grandson, Craig Carter Edwards, is going to read a poem that was written by one of the Canadian airmen who is not with us anymore, and then we will unveil the plaque.
Just before I do read this, I'd like to make an observation. We have 4 gentlemen here that are in their 90s, that have been through hell and back, and yet they have survived, and they're all happy. They're all enjoying life and enjoying the people around them. I think it tells us something about what real strength is. A Reflection by Willie Waldron, RCAF, KLB 78402. I'll think of you, dear KLB, again some future day, when the world is gay and free, and I am so far away. With those long lapels and pouring rain, with neither boots nor shoes, and the SS guards who counted us, hitting whom they choose. When I balance my children on my knee, I'll think of the gypsy kids, who instead of wearing ball and chain, should have been wearing bibs. When I lay in my cozy bed at night, I'll think of your hard boards, with a single blanket to cover us, fleas and lice in hordes. Ironically, I'll think of how you took our dog tags from us. Nix soldat civil, you said, smiling fanatically at us. Yes, you gave us soup and enough black bread to etch out a mere existence, enough to keep us wanting more and weaken our resistance. How 2 of our number lost their lives for lack of medical aid. You would even give them food to help save them from the grave. And then, after 8 weeks spent in your filthy soul, which seemed to me like years, the Luftwaffe came, and they took us away. I felt like shedding tears. And so, to all you concentrationes, a toast I offer thee. Here's wishing you a happy life, and to hell with the KLB.
Okay, we would like to unveil the plaque now.
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you used to do, till the bright sky drives the dark clouds far away. So won't you please say hello to the folks that I know, tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
in closing, we'd just like to thank a few people. Hey, Mom, can you bring the plaque up? Philip Newman, Holm Kirsten, Rachel Bryant, and the rest of the Buchenwald Memorial for making this possible. We'd like to thank the Dospiel Masonry Company and Andreas Dospiel for making this amazing, beautiful plaque for us today. And most of all, we would like to thank Bernd Schmidt for helping us so much. He helped us make the film. He helped put us in touch with all the people here at the memorial to make that. And then again, he helped us make this possible. And he was there at the masonry first shop, making sure that it was made correctly. And we would like to offer you this plaque, Bernd, for all the things you've done for us. If you don't mind coming up here. Be a place to put a picture of us with the plaque when we're done. Okay? Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Thank you. Chat, we're gonna get a picture of you guys back here, okay?
Four of us?